Hello, good evening, and welcome to the Majority Show, coming to you live every Wednesday at 7 p.m. This is where you will find Scotland's number one politics chat. I'm here tonight with my co-hosts, Mary Devlin and Niall Fraser.
Good evening, everyone.
Hello, everyone. I hope you're well.
Yeah, so what are you going to have for us tonight, Mary?
Well, tonight I'm going to be talking about this week's latest scandals on the ongoing Ferry saga.
Yes.
Every week, guys.
Every week, yes, indeed.
And I'll be talking about Sturgeon's dirty tricks.
Well, that sounds quite exciting anyway.
Yes.
And we'll all be talking about the corruption is something rotten in the state of Scotland.
And of course, stay tuned right to the end until the Zoomer of the week.
Right, so we'll be back with all that and much more in a moment after these titles. Right, welcome back to the Majority Show, Scotland's number one politics chat. I'm here tonight with Mary Devlin and Niall Fraser, who hasn't been with us for a while. Niall, what have you been up to?
Oh, well, first of all, hello to all your great viewers, Mark and Mary. I've been working away with these Twitter spaces. You may have listened in.
Oh, yes.
There's some great guests recently, and it's almost like an old school radio show, like a phone-in show. So if you have to check it out, please do. And it's always good to hear from new people on these spaces. So if you're looking for information on that, just follow me on Twitter. Other than that, I've been quite busy writing away and working with the Scottish Family Party for some super secret plans for the future. That I cannot reveal at all. But I have, however, been
we'll torture
very
you
much
later
missing my weekly slot on the Majority. Been missing it greatly.
Well, people have been missing you. They're always asking for you.
Well, I appreciate it.
Well, they definitely are, and it's good to have you back on the show. Okay, where are we at? Finally, some good news. After being locked out of our Facebook account for over a month, we are back in. Here it is, there it is, after being locked out. We are back. So some of you will be watching from our Facebook account right now. Now all we have to do is get YouTube to fix our account over there, and we'll be right back where we started. Anyway, thank you all for your patience with that. We haven't been doing much posting on the Facebook account today because busy with the show, of course. Anyway.
Well, as usual, I would like to give a huge thanks to UK Union Voice and United Against Separation, their Facebook pages, where many people are watching from tonight and do every week.
And of course, wherever you are in Scotland or indeed elsewhere, please like, share, comment, and tell your friends. You can extend our reach with the very quick of a button.
And as usual, I'll be handling all the comments, so please keep them short and snappy, and I'll try to get as many up on screen as I can.
Right, okay, one other thing is about, we have merchandise available in the Majority shop if you would like to go and get some. We have these very nice here, Make Scotland Better t-shirts, which is good there. Oh, they're fantastic. Great. And of course, the Abolish Holyrood classic design that we have here. Anyway, a little bit from each one of those goes towards the show. So anyway, we've got lots to talk about today, and we look forward to your comments. So back in a second. Right, so as we all know, the SNP is under police investigation for misuse of funds. So far, we've seen the arrest and questioning of Peter Murrow, the SNP's CEO and husband of Nicola Sturgeon, a detailed search of the Murrow house, CSI Uddingston, just up the road from here. It was just up the road from
neighbours.
Our neighbours. Just bringing the tone of the whole neighbourhood down. Just not allowed. Okay, then we've had a mysterious camper van that was seized from the drive of Peter Murrow's elderly mother. The arrest and question of Colin Beattie, the SNP's treasurer, who then quit. And various leaks about 1,000-item warrant list, including but not limited to fridges and pens.
And pots and pans, ladies' razors, cuddly toys. Sorry, thought I was on the generation game there.
Oh, very, very good. Anyway, but this week, so we've had questions have been raised about the timing of the search warrant. According to a Freedom of Information request, first published in the Sun newspaper, Police Scotland asked prosecutors to sign off on the warrants on the 20th of March, which was 1 week before Humza Yousaf became SNP leader. But the go-ahead for the search was not officially given until the 3rd of April, 2 weeks later. Niall, a few things to say about this.
Oh, well, I mean, let's talk about the delay. I mean, surely this delay impacts the search. I mean, is it too much to think that Sturgeon didn't know about this? I mean, that's the £1 million question, isn't it, Mark?
I definitely think so.
This 2 week gap where the search warrant, it's the most egregious bit of information we've received until now about the SNP. We already know that there's a very, very close relationship between the Crown Office and SNP leadership. And then it's extremely, extremely possible that this search warrant was known to SNP leadership prior to the warrant being acted upon. So, I mean, hypothetically, we would be saying that this 2 week window could have been used to cover tracks, destroy evidence, and ultimately pervert the course of justice. So this isn't one small trifling matter at all. This is extremely, extremely serious. And I mean, in the grand scheme of things, it just adds more speculation more fuel to the inferno that is already engulfing the SNP. So I'm enjoying it quite greatly.
Well, I don't know if it's really something that should be enjoyed, to be honest. No.
It's a bit
of a disaster, really. Okay, well, I mean, of course, we're enjoying the meltdown, but it does say many things about what's going on in Scottish civil society. Anyway, when Sky News questioned Dorothy Bain, who is the Lord Advocate, they didn't get much from her. Where was this?
She was keeping stum, wasn't she?
Yes, top prosecutor refused to say if search of former First Minister home was deliberately delayed until after she left office. And that's the reporter, I think Conor McGillis, chasing her down the street. That's good. We need a bit more of that type of journalism, chasing folk down. A bit more doorstepping, certainly.
Well, they never did that much, did they? I mean, they very rarely ever did that.
I know, really did.
Well, we should definitely encourage it by giving them loads of views so that more of them happen. Absolutely.
Well, definitely.
Well, the thing is that the investigation was actually going on for 2 years to get to the point where they asked for the warrants. So when they talk about things like, at that point, we had to consider very carefully if this had like political, if this was going to influence things politically or whatever. It's like they already knew about it for 2 years. So they had plenty of time to discuss it and plenty of time to work out, if warrants did have to be issued, what their strategy would be.
Yeah,
it wasn't just a shock or a big surprise.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, okay, so the spokesperson for the Crown Office and Procurator Fiscal Service said, in all matters, Scotland's prosecutors act independently of political pressure or interference. But various MSPs, Russell Finlay for Conservatives, said the whole murky saga brings into sharp focus. I don't know if this is his actual voice, but anyway, we'll try this. The whole murky saga brings into sharp focus the untenable dual role of the Lord Advocate, both as head of the prosecution service and as the Scottish Government's most senior lawyer with a place at the cabinet table next to Nicola Sturgeon. I didn't say that bit. And then Jackie Bailey said, we need to have a serious discussion in Scotland about separating the role of the Lord Advocate to ensure that there's no perception of conflict of interest can ever occur. Well, how many serious discussions do we need in Scotland?
Well, I mean, I don't think these MSPs are far off the mark at all. I mean, they're just really saying and expressing what we're all thinking, really. I mean, there can be no perception of conflict of interest here because that would bring the whole justice system into disrepute, I'm sure. And I totally agree with Russell Finlay that the Lord Advocate having a seat at the cabinet table, working so closely alongside SNP leadership, it's untenable and it can't continue on. So
no, I think that as this. Well, go ahead, Mary.
I was going to say I don't think that's anything new. I think that's been the case for quite a long time, but people haven't really raised questions about it before because we've never actually been suspicious.
Well, people kind of raised questions about the role in her role in the referendum bill a little bit, where she seemed to be pushed politically to take on a case that was unwinnable. And remember, who can forget her? It's an injustice type.
It's an injustice.
she
Calamero impersonation.
Yes, we had that at the time. But the of course, the Crown Office has to be above reproach because the public needs to have confidence that the Scottish Government is behaving legally. And if the person who's in charge of that is sitting right next to people who are wanting to bend and push the law a little bit, then, or even a big bit perhaps, then that's really a big problem, I think, and really erodes public trust. And I mean, I don't see why at any point they wouldn't just say, look, we'll split these roles. The reason they don't is because maybe there's something going on. Right. Okay. So we'll get ahead, Mary.
I'm just saying that Peter seems to think that justice in Scotland is corrupt to the core. Fact.
I don't think he's the only one that thinks that.
Yeah.
Well, we've seen more political pressure put on the Crown Office, and of course the police was rolled. All those, I think it was 8 different services were rolled up into one, so that you can exert political pressure on the top person. But it looks like the police actually managed to do this investigation. Right. And they got to a certain point, or like, okay, we're ready. We've got enough here. And then it's ready to go. And then waiting.
And then a warrant, and then 2 weeks go by before they
why are we waiting here?
Pistol.
Because
exactly.
I mean, does this happen in any other type of crime? Do you think alleged crime where the people get 2 weeks to potentially get 2 weeks to react?
Well, I don't know if you've read the Wings Over Scotland have got quite a good piece on it. I was reading that today, and they laid out the process and how it normally works. So normally it would just take a couple of days.
Yes, so definitely something strange there going on. Of course, some people are saying that if it had been revealed earlier, then Humza Yousaf may not have been the candidate. I don't really know if that's entirely true. I mean, he was the continuity candidate, but he seems to know he's doing a Manuel out of Fawlty Towers impersonation quite well.
I know nothing.
He knows nothing, right? Yeah. And I mean, I don't know if that would really have affected him. I mean, it's just perhaps Kate Forbes fans are trying to go for that. But Humza is on the defensive. We have this here. This is the laugh of this one. Independent supporters can trust SNP with their money. Right, okay, very good. So he's claiming in this article that money sent to the SNP is safe, and the SNP supporters will dig deep.
Despite all the evidence against it?
Yes, despite
the scandals, arrests and evidence, yes.
I think
everything's safe.
More akin to wishes from a genie. The SNP are going to dig deep for us yet again. No, I don't think so this time, Humza.
I think he's trying to hypnotise them. So you will dig deep.
He says here, I don't believe there will be any particular reason out of the ordinary that it would take that time. I suppose that would be a question for the Crown, not questions for government or ministers or the First Minister. We would never dream of interfering, neither in a live police investigation, but certainly not in a search warrant. And my question to this is, who is we? Because would he also say we would never dream of using ring-fence funds? Or would he also say we would never get arrested and questioned for alleged financial shenanigans? Or would he say we would never buy a camper van? So why wouldn't we get a heads up from the Lord's Advocate?
Who is we, Mark? That's a great question, especially when he says it in such authority, But I mean, see, for the life of me, I still think it's inconceivable that we can run an effective administration while there's a police investigation that's looming over the top of it. All of us. I mean, it's just inconceivable. I think a full stop on Holyrood business and activity that is doing policies, bills, until the conclusion of this police investigation is required.
Well, I think a full stop just of the whole thing would be great, but
well, I mean, whether you'd like a temporary, more than a temporary pause on Holyrood, I don't think it's devolution that's the problem. I think it's devolution powers that are being used by the SNP as a cudgel to beat Westminster over the headway, and of course the raison d'etre of the SNP. So hatred here and division here in Scotland. I mean, even if this investigation turns out to be nothing, even if it's nothing, a damp squid, no results, no arrest. We've still got the question, right? While the SNP, have they got the competence to run Scotland, given that they're so gross, their gross ineptitude's ripping right out them in terms of running their own accounts and the whole culture of secrecy that's surrounding the membership numbers? I mean, it's just, how can we allow these incompetence to run us, even if this investigation
Sorry, Niall. I guess what would normally happen would be that you would have some kind of vote of no confidence, right?
Yes. Well, that's why they keep the Greens
in the Conservative
side.
Party, they have, for example, in Westminster, they have like a vote of no confidence. Even they vote against people in their own party or whatever.
Yes.
So, but that mechanism doesn't seem to work and doesn't seem to be happening in Scotland.
They've got the Greens on side, particularly specifically for that purpose, and there's not enough rebels inside the party at the moment. Perhaps that's something that Niall will touch on a little bit in his segment. I think this is the idea of overall.
The rebels are growing.
Now, from my perspective,
the Rebel Alliance.
They found their voice anyway.
Yeah, sure. I think that it's a structural failure in the devolution, and it means that the entire devolution system needs to be reevaluated. If these kind of abuses are seen to be part of the system, then the public can't put their faith in the system at all. I mean, is it so really that difficult to just say, look, well, she or whoever has the role is separate, right? That's a separate, because we don't want to be above the law either. We don't want to be in a situation that effectively I was an honest person, right? Which I am. But then I would say, okay, I need someone independent who will check and make sure that I'm being honest. But if I was a dishonest person, then perhaps I wouldn't want that at all. And the less scrupulous among us and SNP politicians, but I repeat myself, will figure out ways to bend the scales of justice in their favour.
Well, Peter Morris is agreeing with Niall. He says, close Holyrood until full fiscal audit and investigation complete.
Yes. Well done.
God, that could take years. That would be great, wouldn't it?
It could. I could have a 2-year holiday.
Oh, they'd all be in full pay, though, while it was going on.
Oh, no, of course.
Well, that's definitely very true there. In the meantime, as we saw, Humza is asking his supporters to dig deep. And here's a simpler suggestion. If you're a nationalist, you don't like the Tories, you don't need to dig deep for a dead-end cause. You don't need to support nationalist grifters, gropers, and no-hopers. You could just vote Labour instead. Save yourself all the bother. Right, good start to the show there. Well, we hope you enjoyed it out there.
We enjoyed it.
We're quite happy with it. Well, more will come out on this. I mean, some people have said there should be a royal commission or something to investigate this at the very minimum. Perhaps it needs something independent. We've talked a long time about how the UK government has had this hands-off approach to what's going on in Scotland, and there's structural issues, there's real issues that are just happening, topical issues, I don't know how you call that, that are happening in the moment, and there needs to be some adults in the room to look at this. And in the UK, I mean, look at the UK government. UK government tries to get away with whatever it can, and then the House of Lords is like, no, don't like it, move it. And people complain about the House of Lords, of course, but it is a kind of break on that type of power, and they can form, and there's also committee structure and all kinds of things like that exert power or that limit the power of the government. Checks and balances. None going on over here. And obvious stuff like that. I mean, obviously people are going to abuse stuff if they can.
They're running amok. There's a lot of Scottish people say they're running amok.
Right.
Absolutely.
Well, yes, talking about muck, there will be some talk about dirty tricks in a moment. But first, more than ever, we need your donations to keep the fight going on days like today and every other day. We are working from morning till night to keep you informed, to amplify your voice, and just to keep the fight going, because there's still a lot that needs to be done. So please, if you like what we do, please pledge a monthly or one-time donation. Any amount is very helpful. We're grateful for anything. Thank you very much for that.
It all goes to good use.
You go to the Majority's website below. All right. Coming up, Niall is going to be talking about the dirty tricks. So we'll see you in a second.
Yes, a wee bit of dirty tricks and great segue from the muck there, Mark. Really good. So, I mean, Scotland seems to be limping onward during this police investigation. And if you can call up the article, I'll sort of narrate it as we're going. The dirty tricks clique is what I'm going to call them. So we've got an article written by Douglas Dickey of the Scottish Daily Express. I think one of the better papers in Scotland. The headline reads, Nicola Sturgeon clique used dirty tricks to run SNP, claims former cabinet minister. So it would seem that Alex Neil has joined the Rebel Alliance,
yes. Okay.
and he is claiming that MSPs have spoke out against the government, were threatened with deselection. So someone doesn't know, deselection means that these MSPs would effectively lose their positions and jobs. So that's what the threat is here. You will lose your job. That's what they say when they say deselection. So this is quite the claim, actually. So let's read a bit more. So allies of Nicola Sturgeon and Peter Murrell used to quote dirty tricks to shoot down anyone in the SNP who dared criticise them, a former cabinet minister, Alex Neil, has claimed that, and he even goes on to state that he was personally punished for refusing to support the Scottish government and not publishing key papers in relation to the Alex Salmond inquiry. I mean, what's going on?
Okay.
I mean, there's so many red flags in this. It's just red flag after red flag after red flag. And I mean, this is the best bit. I mean, he claims that if someone wasn't the member of Nicola's clique, they'd be singled out for special treatment. Yes. I hope that wasn't in a good way. And you didn't get any favours whatsoever, he says. Oh, no, no favours for Alex. Oh, no. I think it's all starting to become a bit clear here as to what has been going on in the highest levels of government. I mean, guys, would you like to be part of Nicola's clique? I mean, Mary, what do you think? It seems like I think you're getting a free Amazon Prime membership in this clique.
Well, the amount we buy on Amazon, no wonder our vans are always late coming round. Yeah, I think this is just, what we've been suspecting all along, isn't it? I mean, we've always been saying that, this type of thing's been going on, that people are not allowed to speak out, that they're all being controlled. There's all this mind control going on. And we just didn't know what the nature of the punishments actually were. And the other thing we've been saying all along is that when the dam breaks, then everything will start to flood out. And I think that's what we're seeing. I think people are starting to, now that they know that it's over, then they're starting to be able to release all the stress and the tension and the nasty goings on that have been going on for quite some time, for years, in fact.
Well, I guess it's just the beginning, isn't it?
The great distancing.
Yes.
Everyone distancing themselves from the sort of clique.
Yeah, well, I think you have to be careful with that, because I think people, they'll distance themselves from it. You get these people who are not nationalists people, right? And so on. And you're like, well, wait a minute, you supported it all this time and you were part of it. At least own it. You were part of the thing there. You put up with it. It was your thing just as much. You can kind of distance yourself for a little bit, but we remember as well that you were doing it. I mean, this thing, I think in general, this type of control, centralized control, is a feature of nationalist governance. I mean, they don't want people out in the boonies, having control 100%. over their wee area. They want it all being in the middle and that's what they do. Say this has to be the Scottish, whatever it is, Quango of whatever, and put as many of those as possible instead of saying and run everything from the middle. So the problem with that is that when power is centralised into Edinburgh, then it's centralised into the Scottish government, and it keeps centralising until you end up with the dear leader in the middle who has all the power. And what they do then is they have to maintain that power by only promoting people who toe the party line, and also what's it called? Promoting people people who are a lower level than them, because they can never be challenged, right?
Right. Yes.
So and then if you step out of line, well, there it comes. You get whipped around the back of the bike sheds. But
you get special treatment. Special, very special.
She gets the slipper out. I'm going to get you. For saying something out of line. I mean, they have that thing there as well, which is that's a directive where no person shall challenge another person in the party ever. And what kind of thing is that? Because it just makes the whole thing very brittle. People a party. I mean, you might talk a lot about the Tory party and how it's got all these internal divisions, but it's the fighting in there that makes the party stronger, because they can accept some kind of separate ideas in there. Now, it depends how far separate they are. Perhaps there's a bit too many things going on. But I mean, Labour's the same. Every party has different factions. And that's the thing, actually. In the SNP, they have all these factions, but they've all been forced to be quiet. Mm-hmm. And the culture of fear and secrecy. We talked a little bit this last week. Maybe David mentioned it as well, or 2 weeks ago.
Well, and David's been asking for people, if anyone wants to be a whistleblower, to contact him.
Yes.
And he'll provide anonymity for them. But we just want to find out more of these things that are actually taking place.
He's been reading the old rumour mill, has our David. Yes, he's been doing the Lord's work recently.
Yes, he has. He's really been in there.
He's better than Gillian Sturgeon at the with the psychic kind of.
She can read the tea leaves, whereas he needs to actually have people physical in the street with binoculars and stuff. She can just see it in the ether.
Yes, well, she didn't foresee this disaster coming down the pipeline.
So here's someone else asking about the Children's Commissioner who spoke out this week.
Yes.
And saying, why didn't they speak out sooner? So what was it the Children's Commissioner said again? They said that the children were being...
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, children were being failed in Scotland.
Yeah.
By Nicola Sturgeon and the SNP government.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'll see if I can find that headline.
Elizabeth,
oh, yes, here it was.
Absolutely correct.
Here we go. Nicola Sturgeon absolutely failed Scottish children, as Commissioner says this. Bruce Addison said the former First Minister had let families down over child poverty and mental health. Oh, he's standing down now after 6 years in the role. That's why he's able to do it now, because he's got nothing. Yeah. He's already taken his salary and so on. I mean, this is the kind of the point I was alluding to earlier on. It's not been worth it to them to there's been no gain for them in bucking the trend. If he'd said that before when Nicola Sturgeon was around,
he might have gained someone, yeah.
No, he would.
He'd have
the
lost
public
his
might
job,
have gained stuff, but he would have lost his job.
I know, but these people should have more backbone.
He would have gained some self-respect at the very least.
I mean, what about the children? Exactly. So if they've been getting failed for 6 years, what has he done to try and make sure that didn't happen? Or, and if he couldn't do anything, then the main thing he could have done was speak out and let people know.
Well, Nicola Sturgeon
waited 6 years.
Yeah, she was supposed to be judged on education, and this is what he says here in the same article. I'll try and get it. He says Scotland's young people still did not have access to the high standard of health and mental health or education to develop them to their fullest potential. When government is making decisions around things like funding, around free school meals and mental health counselling, there's some real failures there. We see cuts to things like youth work, early years services. That scaffolding around families, it raises some really serious questions. So, that's it.
Well, Gillian has summed it up. He said Sturgeon was shit, basically. Thank you for your summary, Gillian.
And Ian as well, with the latest comment, he has also let the children, like just what you said, Mary.
Yeah.
Absolutely, I'm with you on that. I mean, time is of the essence here.
Well, the children grow up quickly.
I mean, standing back while all these children are being failed is also a failure.
I mean, to try and give them some, say something positive. I mean, maybe he was trying to do things, but 6 years is quite a long time, and it would have been good if they'd at least tried to alert the media or contact people about it.
No, and also, I mean, we talk about mental health. These aren't particularly, I don't know if these are particularly difficult things to deal with. Like, you've got to say there's a 3-year waiting list or more to go to get mental health services in Scotland for children. And, I mean, how difficult is it to put money into that, to get more things? It's not a priority for them. That's what it comes down to. You can put money there, but they'd rather give money into free bikes and bike lanes and stuff like that. Well, there was
hardly any uptake on the bikes, as we reported before.
Oh, yes. Stuff like that. Or, for example, this free travel for kids, it's £300 million it costs. Now, you just take £20 million. I don't know how much the health services cost, but it's not going to be that much to make a real change in people's life. Imagine you've got a child who has issues, and then you take them to the NHS and you say, we can't see them for 3 years. 3 years? They'll be grown up by then.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I mean, it's really terrible.
If they're lucky, or they might be suffering terribly.
Brian Bennett asking for more whistleblowers to come out the woodwork. Absolutely, Brian. We need as many people as possible to make themselves known.
I think we'll see a lot of people speaking out now, but just, I think some of those people should have been speaking out sooner.
Yeah, and it's still couched a little bit like Nicola Sturgeon did a good job, but it's a bit like that.
I think anyway, that'll drop off eventually. That preface that Nicola's done.
So if she does get arrested, and once they start losing elections and so on, but it's a bit late. We could do with this whistleblowing now. Anyway, I mean, there's enough disasters on show right now. But one has to wonder about things like the salmon trial, what really went on there. One have to wonder about internal finance, the SNP, of course, what really happened. These things, and people do know what's going on there. And at a certain point, truth will come out. One hopes. Anyway.
Well, I've got John T. Scott here asking, we cannot change the past, so what person can change the future? Is there a leader out there?
Yeah,
well, I think we have to be careful.
Everyone's asking the same question, Johnny. Everyone's asking.
Right, okay, that was a good section. We managed to go from one thing to the other. We had intended to talk about the education a little bit anyway. So, where are we at? We will be back in a few moments to talk about the Ferry scandals, but I was thinking earlier we need to get a new thing which I was reading about. If you're watching this on YouTube, please hit the like button. Partly that is a really great thing, and of course if you like us, please do subscribe to us on our YouTube channel. Everything helps. It's the algorithm. We're all working and slaves to the algorithm. So whatever you can do to help us make those little cogs go faster, that would be great. Okay, in a second, Mary will be up talking about the ferries.
Okay, well, there are a few scandals to cover this week on the ongoing ferries saga. We're never short of news on this subject. A little bit later, I'll be talking about Lorna Slater's bad press for chartering a private boat instead of just taking the blooming ferry.
Zoomer.
That'll be on Zoomer of the Week, so I'll talk about that a little bit more later. Now, at the weekend, we learned there were about 60 people were stranded on Arran, the Isle of Arran, overnight, including a group of 18 school children because, well, the last ferry from Arran was cancelled because of fog. And okay, that can happen. So, but the last boat to run before that was a catamaran and wouldn't let loads of people get on. There was a lot of people there waiting to get on. And there were plenty of empty seats and plenty of car spaces actually on the catamaran. Have you got that?
Yeah, that's a picture there, Mary, of the space of the seats.
So people were saying that probably just when the catamaran actually left, it looked as if it was only running at about 50% capacity.
Right.
Now the a lot of excuses, as usual, a lot of excuses have been given as to what happened. The Calmac are saying that the boat had reached its legal capacity.
It seems unlikely.
Well, in which case, maybe they want to have a look at what that legal capacity is, because maybe you could fit an awful lot more people on there. And another thing, they said there wasn't enough life jackets.
Oh, okay.
Well,
this is like the Titanic.
I know.
We
have a bunch of guys.
No other vessels to save it, so really we can't allow this one.
Well, we're laughing, but I mean, the Titanic went down in like 1912, right? So we're 111 years on from then. You think we might have learned a few things about, ferries and boats and so on, and how to get, keep people safe on them. So they're saying there weren't enough life jackets. Okay. And then they also said, so people were basically being told all kinds of different stories. Other people were being told that there was a staffing issue.
Right.
So they weren't sure. I don't know if they were short of seats, they were short of life jackets, sorry, not lifeboats, or short of staff or whatever. And the group of kids who were waiting and couldn't get home, they were told that they couldn't get on because it had to be pre-booked. But the catamaran only started the day before and no booking. You couldn't book for it. So it's a terrible story. So these kids, they were actually all from a football team, and they'd gone to Arran for the day to climb Goat Fell, and it was actually for charity.
Okay.
But it ended up that they were out of pocket. They ended up in the negative because, they had to pay for a bus, they had to pay for food, and they had to pay for overnight accommodation. So they actually ended up losing money instead of making money for the charity.
That's rubbish.
Yeah.
So as I said, I mean, you can understand that a ferry can be cancelled because of fog, adverse weather, or whatever. But I mean, this is Scotland, for God's sake. It must happen all the time, right?
Mm.
So why didn't they just get extra life jackets? They could maybe have got them off the ferry that wasn't running.
I don't believe this extra life jacket thing.
No, I don't believe it either.
No, I don't believe for a second.
I think you're right. I mean, I think it's just a case of bad management and a lack of ingenuity as usual. And this is a situation that could be foreseen, right?
Yes, of course.
Well, I mean, first of all, let's make the Scottish Government reimburse or at least double this donation to this charity, especially if they bend up a pocket. This is unacceptable. A wee school team is being denied their donations because they're having to spend extra money. It's absolutely outrageous. I mean, there are worse places in the world to be stranded. Ireland's a beautiful place, but if it's unintentional, then really quite bad. I mean, it's going back to your Titanic imagery. It was like how far was the nearest boat away for the Titanic? It's like 3-4 hours away or something like that.
Yes,
I mean, we've got like 3-4 years to build a ferry before we can get to the stranded vessel. So we would be really quite struggling. We've got 3 years to wait for a rescue mission here. But really, it's got none. We've produced nothing out of this ferry yard in years. Absolutely nothing.
No, it's terrible. It's really terrible. Nothing. It reminds me a little bit of that book. I don't know if you've read that book, Atlas Shrugged. And Atlas Shrugged, it's basically a woman who runs a railway. And she's the private owner. She's the heroine of the thing, and there's all the people conspiring in the government and so on to destroy it. And I think they run their own railway as well. Of course, their own railway is a disaster. I mean, it's just basically you can transplant the same story, whether you like Ayn Rand or not. You can transplant the same story directly into Scotland, but instead of railways, it's ferries. Just complete incompetence and graft and or grift or whatever way you want to say. But I think they're both the same. It's just hopeless, and money's just going down the toilet all the time.
Well, you really get the feeling that people just don't care, because it's bad weather. Okay, it's fog in Scotland. It's like really, and when that happens, they haven't got the organizational ability to get people onto with the previous, boats that are leaving. First of all, apparently they didn't give any notice to the people. Mm-hmm. They got like 2 hours, I think, by which time there was only like one other ferry that was going to go.
So a very, very short journey as well.
Yeah, it's only 2 hours.
They're very, very short journey. And on a side note, just basically, how many times are we going to mention the ferries? I mean, it's like a weekly segment you've got, Mary.
No, well, it is now, yeah. It's turned into a weekly segment because there's always that much news.
Exactly. I mean, how many times are we going to mention it before someone's done? I mean, I think we need a police investigation into the whole ferry situation.
Yes. I mean,
to run in tandem with the actual police investigation. I mean, too much money has been wasted on these vessels and we've still not got them yet.
Well, you're absolutely right.
We need some closure on this. Jeez.
Well, again, it's the same thing, isn't it? It's that we need some adults to have a look at this and say, what the hell's going on here? And there's no. I think there is an inquiry going on at the moment, but it's inside the Scottish Government. That's no good at all.
It'll probably take years.
Yeah, I mean, whatever. We need something external. And this is the thing, checks and balances. It's not that much to ask for. I think that, and perhaps extending to what you're saying, Niall, is that the whole thing should be closed down until we have the appropriate checks and balances. If you're not going to put those in, what's the point in running the thing? Because what happens is you get corruption in the Crown Office, you get this corruption here, you've got a whole load of things going on, and nobody's to blame. I mean, surely maybe someone should go to prison for this or whatever.
100%.
Well, in the meantime, while the Scottish Government is still running, it hasn't been closed down, then things just go from bad to worse. So yesterday we had Minister Neil Gray. He announced that the extra costs on delivering these cursed ferries at Farquarson Marine, he said it's not value for money. It's like,
oh my God.
Sherlock. And it would be cheaper to scrap them and buy new ferries.
Oh my God.
But they're going to keep ploughing millions into them anyway.
Mary, you're killing me here.
Yeah, I know. So they're just going to keep on throwing good money after bad.
Well, split their money. That's why.
Yeah, it's taxpayers' money. And he said if Ferguson's don't deliver the ferries, it would put the future of the yard and the jobs it supports in jeopardy.
Who cares about that? It's 300 jobs. It's not a lot of jobs in the scheme of things.
That's
and
true.
You're spending hundreds of millions of pounds to look after these people. This is the problem with this kind of nonsense. And this is what, Maggie Thatcher was the same, came in to stop this type of nonsense, giving these industries money hand over fist, and then they didn't produce anything. Right. Or maybe it's just we had that back in the 70s or in the 80s, and you said that not enough of that. Government is awful at picking favourites and try to save jobs. You just put money into retraining the people. It would have been much, much less. Or put them into
I think they should
training.
just have given everybody there £1 million and said, go and enjoy the rest of your life, and we'll just forget about building ferries.
That's what's happened, effectively.
Yeah. Except the people working there haven't actually got the £1 million.
Well, that guy,
somebody's got it.
The guy who was, remember the
turnaround
CEO
director
for a while. Yeah, that guy, turnaround director. That's it. Well, he ended up with a good $1 million in his pocket anyway, or whatever it was. Right,
turned around his fortunes.
I mean, if Ferguson Marine was a private business, I mean, how many times would it went bust? It would have went bust 10, 15 times over at this point.
And you know what? If a company can't make a boat, if a boat building company can't make a boat, what is the point of it even existing?
Yeah.
It's not a make work plan for people, but you can make work for other people. You can say, all right, we'll give you 100 million and go and, make some quango in the Scottish government. That way they do that as well, of course. But, at least it's blatant, right? Yeah. But this is just nonsense. It's absolutely ridiculous.
Well, that is this week's news on what's been happening with the ferry scandal. We're nearly £500 million down.
Wow.
And they're still ready to keep just shoveling more in.
Absolutely.
It's like, as you say, Titanic, when they were shoveling coal into the... well, in these ferries, they're just shoveling money into the boilers.
Yeah, there's no hope of it hitting an iceberg. I mean, it hit an iceberg a long time ago, and Kate Winslet and Leonardo are in the water on that door, are surrounded by piles of cash that's coming off the thing.
Still whistling. Whistling for Hull 802 to arrive.
Will we ever see them? Yeah.
No.
I don't know. So probably, guys, I'll be back next week with more
you will be.
ferries news.
This story will go on, so to speak.
Yeah.
Not unlike Celine Dion's Heart.
No.
Yeah.
Now you've got that in your mind.
Yeah.
Do that. Okay, right. Things you can do to support the show. You can make a donation to the majority. We have just go to our website, put something in. Everything helps. You can buy a T-shirt or a mug. Abolish Holyrood. We've got some nice Make Scotland Better ones, because that's what we're all interested in, really. Making Scotland a better place for us all, without nationalists screwing it up. Okay, you can subscribe to the show on YouTube. You can't do that. If you're too lazy to subscribe, at least like this show. You can tell your friends about us, and you can do all 3 or 4. I don't know any other. It's all of the above. That's easier. All right, coming up, it is the moment you have all been waiting for. It is the highlight of the week. It is Zoomer of the Week. Right, okay. From time to time, says here, I delve into the darkest recesses of national thought. You know what's there? Not much. Right, say. But this time I'm pleased to report in that deep, deep jungle, I found an actual Zoomer. Zoomer harmonious. A guy called Grousebeater, who styles himself as the common man's philosopher. Anyway, so this Scottish Socrates decided just to let go and tell us what he thinks independent Scotland should be like. If I was First Minister, that's what he's going to do. So let's have a look and see what this paradox would look like. All right, let's have here we are. Here's the guy here. Okay, there he is there. Hiding in the jungle. Anyway, okay, and the first one. If I were First Minister of Scotland, my team ready to overthrow colonial power, restore Scotland's liberty, implement our full civil and constitutional rights, and see people free to build the country they want without interference or intervention from our belligerent neighbour. Okay, right. Okay, well, anyway. After that, I was like, oh, geez, can I really continue this mission? This is hard going. But I, your valiant servant, persisted, soldiered on, passed sections on abolition of private companies, because, real socialism hasn't been tried yet, and mandatory voting. I like that. You must vote, and you must vote for Nicola Sturgeon too, or Humza Yousaf. But to the jewel in the crown, the enforced Scottish names for kids.
What?
Where did you get this?
Yeah, this is from this is his
from
plan.
Grousebeater.
Yeah, this is the plan.
What does it mean by that?
Right, well, here we go. I admire Iceland enforcing an approved list of traditional names Icelanders must use. People will protest an official list of names as an attack on personal freedoms. Maybe.
You think?
When in reality, it protects their culture and traditions from dilution and eradication.
Oh, man.
And they forget that a Scotsman or woman, because so many of us have a surname beginning with Mac or the diminutive Mick.
Diminutive? What's diminutive?
Wow. Shorter. I'm all for giving a child two names. Those first names should have a linear, identifiable heritage. It does not matter if the name originated in Ireland, Italy, Norway, Denmark, blah, blah, blah. If a name can be proven to be extant in Scotland for, say, 100 years or more, they should be permissible as a Scottish name. A national register can be augmented every year if people wish new names to be added to the list or discovered in past records.
What about all the little Mohammeds?
That's
the most common boy's name now, isn't it, in Scotland?
Yes. Right. I was just thinking that, Mary, as he was coming on. What's he going to do with all the Mohammeds? I mean, that's a new Scottish name, no?
Yeah, that's right. It's what they're going to do with
the most common boy's name in Scotland now is Mohammed.
Yes. So you go down to the local registration office or whatever it's called, registry office. You still have those?
Yes.
You send it anyway.
Yes.
You go, sorry, pal, can you use Mohammed? You'll have to use Bobby instead.
Angus or Hamish.
It would be Robert.
Bobby.
Robert. Shug. We Shug. And Tam.
Right. And the new Scots. No, again, you come from Fanshead and all the lasses in your family have been called Amelie. But you just have to use one for this list. So you choose Singer or Mhairi. That's Mhairi with an H.
No.
It's total. It's unbelievable. Yeah. And then these guys get the cheek, right, to I posted some of this on. I didn't post this about the names that much actually, but I posted this, and he saw it on Twitter, and he's like, "Oh yes, the what's it called? The 77th Brigade is after me, and MI5 is going to do stuff to us, and they're against us." I'm like, MI5, please. Okay, if MI5 you're watching, come here, give us money. It would be great. We'd really like some. Of course, we wouldn't actually do that because ours is a people's movement, not a crazy nutters movement. Yes. Anyway. Mr. Grousebeating. Here's Mr. Grousebeater.
How many followers has he got, Mark?
It's like 14,000 or something.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
I think they're just there for the lols.
And the whole that you read though.
I'm going to follow him. I think this is great.
Complete nutter.
Yeah.
Anyway, see, it appears Mr. Grousebeater has been beating more than grouse, if you know what I mean. And for that reason, he's my Zoomer.
Oof, I'm glad I'm not up next, I'll tell you.
That's a hard act to follow, Mark. I'll give you that.
Definitely.
You've done some digging this week. I can't believe it. He's got an approved names list. What is going on in the state of Scotland, guys? And what is going on? You're right. He's not been beaten more than grouse. It's something else. I think he's fell on his head or something. Oh my goodness.
I know, it's quite something, isn't it?
What were the punishments if you don't follow this? You're just not allowed to name your child? Or
no, it's forcefully named for you.
Oh yeah.
Well, that used to happen when Catholic babies were being christened. It's like they had to have a saint's name, and if they didn't have a saint's name, then if the priest didn't like the name, he would just call the baby something else. So there's a story in our family about somebody when the baby was about to get christened. I can't remember what the name was the parents wanted. It was a fairly ordinary name, and the priest said, "No, that's not a saint's name," and called her Bridget.
Yes, well, you have to go to the register and put your name down. Put the name approved, list of approved names. And, I mean, this is the thing, though. This is the thing we always used to say at the beginning was what we want to do is we want to split the nationalist movement, because at that time there was a bunch of people like Nicola Sturgeon, great management. They can do better for Scotland, and there's a bunch of nutters. Okay, people go and march marches, wave of flags, and so on. And now all the people who like Nicola Sturgeon are like, well, maybe that wasn't such a good idea anymore. So they're in the middle, politically homeless, as they might call themselves. Of course, they'll mainly vote for Labour when it comes to the next election. But that means all that's left is the nutters. And include Alex Salmond in that and his nonsense about the stone, which we talked about last week.
I wonder if Nicola would be an approved name.
Of course. That's first on the list.
Is that English? Isn't it English?
I don't know, but it would have to be added, wouldn't it?
Adopted Scottish
Nicola
name
and Peter.
Well, there is a trend for that, of course, people using like Irish spelling and so on in their names, or Gaelic spelling, kind of. Yes, almost impossible to read those. But that's the point. Is it's parents' choice. Anyway, if you want to do that as a parent, fine, go ahead, do what you like. But not the government say, here's a list, you approve name. No. Okay, moving on.
Okay.
So I mean, my one, I don't think it's nearly as good as Mark's. Mark's is a gem this week, but I've got quite a resident Zoomer, one that isn't really. She's not afraid of being a Zoomer. I don't think. I think she's quite embraces it. Her name is Mhairi Black, and once again, she just drags Scotland down into the gutter with her gutter speak in the Parliament. Again, she's pretending to be a Ned almost. She's like.
Is she pretending, or is she a Ned?
Yeah, I think she had a middle class behaviour, right?
And it's so unbecoming of a person in such high public office that, I mean, it just gets worse and worse. And I think lately, she's went right off the wagon. Remember her on Preston, and I mean, she's just been really winding herself up and winding Scotland up recently. But if you've got the video, obviously she's just cursing again in Parliament for no
decisions
reason.
On top of a global pandemic. But mind you, this is a dangerous government making bad decisions on top of a global pandemic. But mind you, we shouldn't be surprised given the fact that they seem to have been half the time at parties in number 10. So as I said, there is
She's the
an
one that
element
got caught
of truth
drinking on the train.
And the war in Ukraine, for instance, has also...
I should just say to the Honourable Lady, she really must not use language like that. Please don't. And I hope you will apologise for...
Sorry, madam.
They were inebriated, intoxicated, they were paralytic at parties in number 10. Is that all right?
Quite careful. Mhairi Black, continue.
Yeah.
I don't see what I said that wasn't true, Madam Deputy Speaker, but I take it.
Oh my God!
Oh yes!
Oh my God!
Trashy.
I mean, it's not a good look for any of them. It's not a good look for her. It's not a good look for the SNP. It's not a good look for Scotland on the global stage, but outside looking in. I mean, it just makes us look horrendous and sort of apish. I really do dislike it. I mean, it is an embarrassment. Elizabeth is absolutely correct.
She seems to revel in this, pet Ned type of thing. It's like it's just her whole demeanour is. I don't see that it's necessary. I'm not saying. I mean, maybe there is a place for that. I don't know. I mean, but it just seems very uncouth. You're going to the national parliament, and you think you'd be like, okay. I'm going to present myself and my country, especially as a nationalist, actually. Present myself and my country as best as possible.
She's representing a constituency as well, isn't she?
Yeah. Paisley, isn't it Paisley somewhere?
Oh, well.
Right. Well, I think it's under, her seat is under threat from the Labour surge. So she might not be there that much longer. She's also partly
all
one
of the SNP seats are under threat, Mark. I think I will correct you. Every single one of them. They're disintegrating faster than a meteor on impact. They're
a meteor of bullshit. Away. Yeah, that's what it is. There is a tipping point. I think if it goes another couple of points, then they'll pretty much lose most of their seats, certainly Westminster seats. And I saw today Kenny Farquharson was trying to say that SNP voters could still, after they had voted Labour in the general election, they could still kind of consider themselves nationalists and that the independence dream wouldn't be dead. And I was like, I don't think so. As soon as you make that mark in the box, that's it. That's over. It's very difficult to go back from there, because how could you then allow anyone to call you a red Tory in your own party? You can't go back to being a nationalist after just marking down that you were going to be a red Tory according to nationalists. Right, so so I don't see how that can actually work. Anyway, but yes, they're on perhaps in the way out. Maybe there'll be a resurgence, a bump, a dead cat bounce, perhaps. May happen in the next few months, whatever. We have to be careful of that, of course. Right, but for just general neddery, I think that's a pretty good choice. Actually, did I put the thing up? Did I do this one? There we go. I think I did. All right. Anyway, moving on. Mary's up.
Okay, no surprise to some people who've already voted for her, but my nomination for Zoomer of the Week is Lorna Slater for being such a hypocrite and wasting taxpayers' money chartering a boat when she could just have bought a £9.40 ticket, got a ferry like everybody else. So last Friday, she squandered the taxpayers' money by chartering this private boat to take her from Mallaig to the Isle of Rum, which, as we all know, has a ferry. And all she had to do was pay £9.40. But we suspect that she paid hundreds, if not thousands of pounds to actually charter the boat. But she said that she had to charter the boat because she wanted to maximize her time on the island.
Why didn't she take a private jet then?
Jeez.
So the Scottish government haven't said what the cost of this is, but I think it just shows the hypocrisy and the lack of self-awareness is breathtaking. Now she's the one that's trying to get us out of our cars and always battering on about using public transport.
Yes. Well, it's one rule for them, isn't it? And one rule for the rest of us. We are the little people in this.
We're the plebs.
We have to take the ferry service that doesn't run. We have to take the train service that doesn't run. We have to take the buses that don't run. That's what we have to do, and not get out of our cars that actually do run and get us to where we want to go. While she's on the private. She would be in a private jet, if she could.
Yeah,
if she could.
You may as well have taken a helicopter.
Yeah, she took a helicopter.
I mean, it's just why not?
It's not her money. That's
the time.
Part. Maximising the time, my arse. What I mean, as if people are going to be like, I've only got 30 seconds with Lorna Slater, so I better, and Lorna Slater's like, well, I have to get around 100 people and give them my time, the benefit
probably
of
said,
my time.
Thank God, I've only got 30 seconds with Lorna Slater.
Well, for God's sake.
What she said was the CalMac timetable didn't suit.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's the point, isn't it?
That is the point.
So I think that'll go down like a lead balloon with Scotland's island communities. It doesn't suit them either, but I mean, they're lucky these days.
What ferry? Most of them are asking.
Last week I talked about how the people over in Mull, they can't get off the island for like a month. It's completely full.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, and here she is. She's just, I guess maybe that's what she'll tell them all to do. Just charter your own little boat and,
Why
and
don't
go that
you
way.
plebs have your own boat? Why?
I saw that today that there's a billionaire guy from Starbucks has moored his private yacht, £118 million worth private yacht at Greenock. And, some people were saying,
I wouldn't do that if I were him.
Oh my God, I think his limbs are going to get stolen.
Well, apart from that, people were saying, well, that's cheaper than one of our ferries.
You'll find out when he's out at sea, there's no anchor on there.
It's cheaper than one of your ferries.
At least you could get the full-on luxury super yacht experience going across to Mull or the Outer Hebrides or Inner whatever Hebrides or whatever island you choose, in pure luxury.
Because I actually think that the most that's ever been spent on a boat is like 450 million now.
Oh yes, like
Paul Allen or someone at Microsoft or something.
Yeah, that's right.
He had the most expensive boat ever built, and it was 450 million. Now, admittedly, we're supposed to get 2 boats for that in Scotland. But we're just getting crappy little ferries, right?
No, it's rubbish. It really is rubbish. Right. Okay. I think that's a very, very good contender there. Oh, but Niall, you are
Niall gets to choose.
So the choice is Nicola. Not Nicola Sturgeon.
Who to pick?
Lorna Fraser.
Lorna Slater, the £9.40 or charter
or the Grousebeater.
Or Super Ned.
Forced names. This is so
hard choice.
I'm going to have to go with you, Mark, because this has completely come out of left field. I've never heard about such craziness in my life. I mean, we all know Lorna Slater's got a prevalence for ending up in the news for doing something crazy, but
she
really,
wins every other week anyway.
Every other week she's in the news, but this is just totally new to me, Mark. Forced names like Jimmy, names. Hughie, Angus, Hamish. We've got Scottish-only names now. So, Mark, you are a worthy winner this week. Sorry, Mhairi, but I mean, it really was.
So I'm delighted to lose. That's a great one. I love it.
It was a difficult field. Anyway, right. Well, we'd like to thank you all for being with us in the show tonight, and you, of course, as well, Niall, included in that. And leave you with the thought of the week. Scottish nationalism is driven by two factors: that many Scots think they are superior to the English, and at the same time, many Scots feel they are inferior to them. We're kind of all the same people. I don't think we're any better or worse. Now the tide has turned, and the nationalist chancellors who took advantage of those flaws in the Scottish psyche to build their own power are exposed. The question remains, though, why did Scots not see them and their warped ideology for what they were, and why were Scots so easy to manipulate? Perhaps Scots aren't so superior after all. We are so happy to have you with us on this show every week.
I'd like to thank everyone for their comments this week. Thank you.
It's been a good show for us anyway, and we hope it was a good one for you. We will see you again soon. Thank you all for watching.
Yep. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Take care. Thank you.